United States Senator Rick Santorum has certainly had an interesting and improbable career. It all began in 1990, after carefully listening to the wisdom of countless political experts who warned Rick that a run against a popular 8-term incumbent U.S. congressman could only end in a humiliating defeat. He promptly entered the race. Rick Santorum was considered such a long shot in this overwhelmingly Democratic district that the National Republican Congressional Committee refused to make even a token contribution. Not surprisingly, Rick Santorum was ultimately outspent by a 6-to-1 margin. But at 11:14 p.m. on election night, something quite remarkable and unexpected
back and forth
happened.
all night, and Eyewitness News is now prepared to call that race with 98% of the precincts reporting. We're calling the race for Santorum, 51% to 49% over the veteran Democrat Doug Walgren.
This dramatic victory was described as the biggest upset of the 1990 elections. It was also described as a fluke. And to assure it would never be anything more than just that, the Democrats used redistricting to make the 18th Congressional District even more Democrat. The so-called political experts predicted this was the end to the short political career of Rick Santorum. So confident were the Democrats in reclaiming the seat that over half a dozen candidates entered the Democratic primary. The Democrats were well on their way to also reclaiming the White House. The coattail effects, large registration advantage, and commitment by the Democratic machine were certainly too long of odds to overcome. But at 10:58 on election night, something quite remarkable and unexpected happened. Rick Santorum was declared the winner, receiving an incredible 61% of the vote. A year after this stunning victory, Rick Santorum started to think seriously about running for the United States Senate. But just like before, many of the experts counseled him that this was not the right time. The race would be too difficult. He was too far behind in money, name identification, and in the early polls. And Harris Wofford's campaign had the likes of Paul Begala and James Carville running the campaign, fresh off a presidential win. Rick carefully considered this advice and promptly announced his candidacy for U.S. Senate. After one of the most grueling and hard-fought campaigns in Pennsylvania's history, the race was much too close for anyone to predict. But the early election night results signaled a Wofford victory. And with 75% of the vote counted, Wofford still held a comfortable lead. In fact, many went to bed that night assuming a Wofford victory. But the Republican T had yet to be heard from.
According to some projections from both the Associated Press and ABC News.
AP and CNN have projected Rick Santorum as the winner.
From the moment Rick Santorum was elected to the Senate, he became the #1 target of the Democratic leadership in Pennsylvania and in Washington. The Democratic Senatorial Committee publicly vowed that they would spend whatever was necessary to assure Santorum's defeat. And as the 2000 election grew closer, the media increasingly proclaimed Rick Santorum was in the fight of his life. As proof, one newspaper published a poll indicating that only 31% of Pennsylvania voters felt Rick Santorum deserved to be reelected. As the election night results began to pour in, there was a strong indication that this time the experts might actually have been correct in predicting Rick Santorum's doom. In the key battleground states of Michigan, Delaware, Missouri, and Washington, incumbent Republican senators were going down in defeat. Even more troubling, the results indicated that Texas Governor George W. Bush was going to lose Pennsylvania by at least a 5-point margin. But just like so many times in the past, Rick Santorum proved the pundits, prognosticators, and doomsayers wrong. Rick was successfully re-elected by a stunning 6-point margin. The secret to Rick Santorum's success is not a secret at all, but a very public record of accomplishment. Rick Santorum was a key author of our nation's historic Welfare Reform Act, which has given millions the skills and training needed to go from welfare dependence to living the American dream. Rick Santorum has been a leader in protecting and preserving our farmlands and open spaces. He's fought to help parents protect their children from inappropriate and excessively violent content on TV, and from those who would prey on them using the computer as a weapon. Believing that Pennsylvania's workers should be able to keep more of their hard-earned money, Rick successfully fought for a middle-class tax cut, the elimination of the marriage penalty, and an increase in the per-child tax credit. And when it comes to guaranteeing that every one of our children receive the education they deserve, no one is more passionate than Rick Santorum. Not only has Rick voted to dramatically increase public education funding to historic levels, he's also fought for increased funding for early childhood development programs like Head Start and IDEA funding to help our special needs children. Rick believes helping Pennsylvania's seniors is not just a goal, but a responsibility. Not only has Rick Santorum been a leader in protecting seniors' Social Security, but thanks to his efforts, Medicare now has a prescription drug component ensuring that thousands of Pennsylvania seniors can afford the prescription drugs they need. Understanding the need to find alternative sources of energy, Rick has helped secure critical funding for our nation's first ever clean coal-to-liquid fuel plant. This remarkable Pennsylvania facility will not only provide affordable energy and a cleaner environment for generations to come, but will also help make America less dependent on foreign oil. He's a passionate fighter who's taken on foreign nations trying to dump their steel. He's a compassionate leader who's leading the fight against poverty and global AIDS. He's a hands-on senator who visits every Pennsylvania county every year. And most of all, he's a committed husband and father who's touched lives, touched hearts. He's our Senator, Rick Santorum. And he's made a difference all across Pennsylvania.